Everyone, at some point in life, has experienced moments of self-loathing. This could stem from something we've done, a physical trait, or a lingering belief that we're just not good enough. Whatever the cause, dissatisfaction with oneself often begins with the sense that something is fundamentally wrong, lacking, or imperfect within us. These imperfections make us uncomfortable. And while this discomfort isn't necessarily bad, sometimes it pushes us toward positive change. It can also deepen into a corrosive self-hatred. When this dissatisfaction intensifies and lingers, it morphs into something much darker, self-loathing. But is this self-hatred ever constructive, or does it merely lead us astray? More importantly, is self-loathing rooted in reality, or is it just an illusion? Self-loathing can creep into our lives in subtle ways, often starting with small criticisms, the moments we tell ourselves we're not good enough or that we've failed. Over time, these thoughts snowball, evolving into a deeper resentment that taints our self-image and warps our sense of place in the world. It's not only harmful, but often unjustified. What makes this more insidious is that self-hatred may be masking a form of hidden egoism, where we fixate so much on our flaws that we become obsessed with ourselves. So why do we hate ourselves? Is there anything positive that comes from this? And how do we break free from it? There's a common misconception that hating oneself can be a good motivator, much like the mistaken belief that anger is an effective solution to problems. At times, this self-hatred may indeed push us beyond limits we previously feared confronting. But are the successes achieved through this bitterness worth the pain and the risks involved? The reality is, while self-loathing might provide a short-term burst of motivation, its long-term consequences are far more damaging than any temporary benefit it brings. If left unchecked, self-hatred can severely impact our mental and physical health, leading to a downward spiral of negativity, where feelings of inadequacy breed a sense of worthlessness. Worse, self-loathing is often tied to self-destructive behaviors that at first might appear positive. For instance, someone obsessed with pursuing a healthy lifestyle might actually be masking an eating disorder rooted in deep-seated self-hatred. Another person may appear ambitious and hardworking, yet they're driven by an unrelenting belief that they're never good enough, leaving them vulnerable to burnout. Left to fester, self-hatred is a destructive force that can lead to addiction, isolation, self-punishment, or even the harrowing belief that the world would be better off without them. So where does this self-loathing come from? The causes are complex and varied. For some, it's the result of bullying or external criticism, which implants the idea that they are fundamentally flawed. Others may feel they've failed to meet societal expectations of success, which can lead to a spiraling sense of failure. There are even those who loathe themselves because they believe that humanity, in general, is inherently bad, and therefore, their own existence feels pointless. In my own experience, self-loathing often arises from personal setbacks. After years of success, I watched as my viewership numbers plummeted. Despite my efforts to maintain a positive outlook, there were dark moments on that downward path. I found myself asking, am I a failure? What will people think of my decline? I became angry with myself for the mistakes I had made, even though in truth, I had been exhausted from overwork. The doubts crept in, eroding my confidence and leading me to question my worth. I understand why people begin to hate themselves in the face of failure, and I believe that self-loathing stemming from failure is one of the most prevalent forms of self-hatred in today's society. The shame, guilt, and self-blame over our imperfections are something many of us have felt. But if we can recognize that self-hatred is, in many ways, an illusion, fueled by our insecurities, misunderstandings, and unrealistic comparisons, we can start to dismantle it. Self-loathing doesn't define who we are, and it doesn't have to control our lives. Instead of letting it fester, we can confront it, understand its roots, and begin to heal, allowing space for self-compassion and growth to take its place. The fear of being judged for lacking social status is something that haunts many of us. Self-hatred following failure isn't surprising, especially in today's society where the pressure to succeed has never been greater. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han explores this in his book The Burnout Society, which I've delved into before. According to Han, we've shifted from a disciplinary society to an achievement society. In the past, the disciplinary society was governed by the word no, and those who broke the rules were seen as criminals or madmen. Now, in our achievement-driven society, the word yes and the idea of infinite possibilities dominate, dividing people clearly into winners and losers. It's no wonder that many feel like they've failed. They believe they've fallen short of becoming successful entrepreneurs, millionaires, or whatever else society demands. They call themselves losers, echoing the labels society has imposed on them. These societal messages can easily lead to self-hatred. This feeling of inadequacy can also arise from inherent aspects of ourselves that we can't easily change. The concept of lookism is a prime example, the discrimination based on appearance. Essentially, this idea suggests that people treat others differently depending on how closely they adhere to societal beauty standards. Put simply, society favors those who are attractive over those deemed unattractive. Studies consistently confirm that people with physical beauty receive preferential treatment in many situations. While the extent to which lookism shapes the course of our lives is debatable and often misunderstood, one thing is clear. A perceived lack of attractiveness can fuel self-hatred. This is evident in the incel community, short for involuntary celibates, where many members encourage each other to abandon intimate relationships altogether, labeling unattractive men as subhuman. Whether society is responsible for these feelings is a question for another time, but the connection between self-hatred and one's appearance is undeniable. Self-hatred can also stem from regret over past actions. Sometimes we feel shame for embarrassing ourselves or for treating others poorly, including those we love. We might have acted out of cowardice, avoiding confrontation when we should have faced it, and that continues to haunt us. These experiences weigh on us, leading to self-punishment as we replay memories of guilt and shame. Some even deny themselves happiness because of past mistakes. While this may seem noble, is it really a constructive way to cope with the past? Another root of self-hatred can be found in how we've been treated by others. We might blame ourselves for being bullied, internalizing the cruel words and actions of the bullies, and truly believing we are inferior. Perhaps our parents treated us poorly, and we take the blame for that as well. After all, if others trampled over us and treated us like garbage, there must be a reason, right? And so, we simply accept that we are lesser beings, deserving of scorn and unworthy of love. Often, we project this self-contempt into the world through how we treat and present ourselves. What's intriguing is that self-hatred carries an element of narcissism, a fixation on oneself, albeit on the parts of us that we despise. Think about it. Self-loathing is, in a way, an indulgent state. We invest so much in ourselves that it leads to intense feelings of hate and despair, all because of how we perceive our own flaws. When we spend so much time consumed by self-hatred, perhaps we should ask, am I really so important that I should waste all this mental energy focusing on myself? There's a paradox here. In self-hatred, we loathe ourselves, yet we are obsessed with the very self we claim to hate. Let me share a story. When I was 18, a freshman, I had to give a presentation in front of hundreds of people. I was so nervous that my mind went completely blank, and I made a fool of myself. The audience responded with pitying awes, and it was one of the most humiliating experiences I had ever faced. This memory haunted me for years. Even now, when I think back, I still feel uncomfortable. But in reality, no one in that room likely remembers my brief presentation. And if anyone does, they probably don't hate me for it. Nervousness during public speaking isn't a reason to hate someone, and those 5 awkward minutes were inconsequential to the world. To me, it felt like a defining moment, but to the vast world, it was utterly insignificant. So why did I punish myself over this experience for so long? Why do so many people, consumed with self-hatred, fixate on things they've said or done, or the achievements they failed to reach? There's a powerful Stoic exercise called the view from above, which I once covered in a video. This exercise encourages us to look at our lives from a cosmic perspective. When we remind ourselves of our smallness in the vast expanse of billions of galaxies, we start to realize that the things driving us to self-hatred are in truth quite insignificant. Yet when we return to the human experience, grounded in our immediate surroundings and relationship, it's easy to get swept back into the spiral of self-loathing. We still look in the mirror and see our failures or flaws. Some of these flaws might be real, but are they truly reasons to hate ourselves? And more importantly, are we exaggerating these flaws? Does the meaning we assign to them really reflect who we are? For example, if we fail in business or flunk a test, does that mean we're failures for life? If we don't meet society's beauty standards, does that mean we'll never find love? Are we truly less than human, as if ending our genetic line would somehow benefit humanity? Distorted thinking is often at the root of self-hatred. People who loathe themselves, especially those deeply entrenched in it, tend to selectively filter information that reinforces their self-hatred. They gravitate toward communities of like-minded individuals, where they share and amplify carefully curated information, further fueling their self-loathing. A clear example of this is the incel community, men who are involuntarily celibate. While there is some truth to their claims about appearance and preferences in the dating market, their perception of reality is distorted. They magnify bits of information that support their view while dismissing anything that contradicts it. For instance, when a woman chooses an attractive man over a less attractive one, they take it as proof that, and I quote, "it's over for subhumans." But when presented with a man of average appearance who has an attractive girlfriend, they quickly dismiss it, claiming he must be wealthy or that it's an outlier. Are the reasons we use to justify self-hatred actually valid? Aren't we feeding off misinformation to sustain this hatred? Are we clinging to distorted views of reality just to perpetuate our loathing? For instance, if we fail a driving test, does that mean we're failures as human beings, incapable of achieving anything, let alone driving safely? Or does it simply mean we haven't yet developed the skills necessary to drive competently? If we don't live up to society's beauty standards, does that make us less than human? Or is it just a superficial characteristic that society values without diminishing our intrinsic worth, talents in other areas, or our ability to find happiness? Let's suppose we take an objective, rational view of our strengths and weaknesses. Should we still hate ourselves? Suppose we do have flaws, everyone does. Suppose we have an unfortunate past and didn't win the genetic lottery in terms of looks. What then? What options do we have other than lying on the couch, consumed by self-hatred? If self-loathing has consumed you, is there hope? Is there a way forward? The truth is, there are many things we can change about our circumstances. And even if we can't change certain aspects of ourselves, such as past mistakes or genetic traits, we still have a choice in how we respond. Self-hatred thrives on the belief that our flaws, failures, or shortcomings define us entirely. But that's a narrow, self-limiting perspective. We are much more than any single aspect of ourselves, and while society might pressure us into focusing on achievements, appearance, or status, these are only fragments of what makes us human. If we can shift our view, even slightly, we can begin to loosen the grip of self-loathing and find ways to grow, evolve, and lead fulfilling lives, despite the imperfections we inevitably carry. We can alter our appearance to a certain extent, achieve success, or even move to a new place. We can take action in the present to create a better future. We can exercise, eat healthily, and strive to be more generous and kind. But there are also many things we simply cannot change. We can't change the past. External circumstances often lie beyond our control. We can't entirely change the way we look. We can't alter where we were born, the mistakes we've made, or the things others have said and done to us. So how do we cope with the self-loathing that stems from these unchangeable aspects of our lives? From a Stoic perspective, the problem isn't our circumstances, it's the self-hatred itself. Self-loathing is just our reaction to these circumstances, and it arises from the thoughts we have about what is happening to us. If you go out into the world, you will encounter people whose lives are objectively much worse than yours, yet they don't exhibit this kind of self-hatred. One thing I've learned from traveling is that everything is relative. There are countless ways to perceive and experience life. I've met people who, by Western standards of success, would be deemed complete failures. And yet, they are some of the happiest individuals I've ever encountered. If you believe you're less than human and undeserving of existence, go out into public spaces and see how many people who are not conventionally attractive, even some who are considered ugly, are in relationships and living their lives. Some of them are quite happy too. So, what is this self-hatred really about? Is it an overreaction to life's circumstances? Why do we become so absorbed in our own thoughts and emotions about our perceived imperfections? Could there be a more constructive way of living? Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said that an uneducated person blames the world. Someone who is beginning to learn blames themselves, but an educated person blames neither the world nor themselves. Self-blame isn't constructive, it's irrational. It doesn't help us move forward. What do we hope to gain by constantly berating ourselves for our flaws and undesirable traits? From a Stoic viewpoint, the problem doesn't lie in the events that happen to us, but in the act of assigning blame. I'd like to extend this idea to self-hatred. When self-loathing consumes you, the hope lies not in changing your external circumstances, but in how you choose to face them. You can hate the world, you can hate yourself, but how does that truly benefit you? What does it change for the better? Thank you for watching today's video. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Leave a comment below, and let's share knowledge and spread positive energy together.